one of the most important events, the technical quiz round. Every nook and corner, the tit and bit of the event was planned to the utmost perfection that it can be. The only slip, I forgot to book the venue. The entire event was cancelled. And I had to move out again in despair, and in dejection. I had a similar tap again on my shoulder. This time it was my senior. He said, "Don't worry, you will learn how to lead." Fellow Toastmasters, raise your hands if you have ever been in a situation where you know that you lacked something, but you had no idea how to work on it. I was no different than you all. I did not know how to work on these crucial aspects. The aspects of speaking, the aspects of leading a team, I had no idea on it, and then I was put forward in an IT company, but I was expected to lead a team of 3. I was petrified yet once again. What should I do? Whom should I reach? There was no idea. But then in 2018, Toastmasters came as a life changer. Twist again. As I went inside filling my membership form back in 2018, there was a change in the education manual. The old traditional paths were scrapped off and it was introduced the pathways. 11 different paths were introduced, and in a District 92 we have 8,000 members, only a handful of them, not even 10% of the crowd, knew what pathways was. This time I was left alone once again. I did not have the tap again saying, "Don't worry, you will learn." This time it was me who went ahead. Introspection this time. I told to myself, "Don't worry, let's see what happens." And there started my journey in pathways. The word learn, L-E-A-R-N, the 5 letters there, are very close to my heart. I'll explain you why. Level 1 in pathways was all about learning the basics. The basics of who you are. The basics of how do you introduce yourself in the front of a crowd like this. And the basics of how can you compress your 20 years of life that was I lived in a short 4 to 6 minute speech. That's the icebreaker. And that was the challenge. The basics of a speech, the structure, the sequence, and the setup of the speech. And the basics of evaluations was this next project following the icebreaker speech. Gave me an idea of what evaluations are and how speeches are written. And finally, it was time for me to get my hands dirty in data and incorporate data in a speech. And that was called research and present. Moving on, level 2 was more of an engagement with oneself. The first question that was answered was, what type of leader am I? In the project, understanding your leadership style. Following which was the project where my personality as a leader came forward in the project, connect with your audience, where I had to speak alien in front of the audience. The challenge that I should grab their attention and I should retain the attention that I have from them. And the final project in level 2 was an eye-opener for me. What type of a protege I am and what type of a mentor can I be going ahead, not only in Toastmasters but outside the Toastmasters as well. In the project Introduction to Toastmasters Mentoring. That was level 2 for you, engagement in oneself. Moving on, level 3. It was more of an enlightenment in me. Accept the fact that public speaking is an art. And the acceptance took me a month of time. I'll tell you why. The first project in level 3 was present a proposal, where I was expected to present a proposal in front of an audience. And not only present, but to make sure the audience accepts the proposal as it is, as the way I am proposing there. That was the challenge that I had to face. Following which, I was introduced the two core things of public speaking. Number one, understanding vocal variety, where I was introduced to tonality, pace, and rhythm in public speaking. And the second project that I did in this was effective body language, where I was explained how to use hand gestures, how to use the stage, how to move, and how to use facial expressions to convey the emotions that you are going through. Those were the critical aspects that you should have as a speaker. Was there in everything in a form of an art, that's public speaking. Level 3 came up with all these new things to me. Marching ahead in level 4, the rough edges that was learned in the past 3 levels were nurtured. The rough edges were smoothened out, and that's what level 4 did to me. The first project, my dear friends, in level 4 was Introduction to Project Management, where I learned the 3 critical aspects that you can have, you can use anywhere in your life, and that's number 1, time management. Number 2 was strategic planning, and number 3 is working with a team. Working with a team, as we all know, is a very important skill everyone should possess. And that's something that came from a project in level 4. Following which was the project of communication, where I was expected to handle a difficult audience. Take a sensitive topic, speak against it, and let the audience bombard you with questions, data, with mockery, and with whatnot. And the speech lasted for 35 minutes. That was a challenge. And that gave me an idea of what kind of an audience you can expect once you move out of the room in an actual world where the thousands of people around you might be your haters, and you have to be calm, composed, and content with what you say. And that's the challenge that I had to face in my level 4 project. And finally, coming to level 5 was nurturing those skills that I had from the last 4 levels that I did. High performance leadership was one of the projects that I did, which gave me a 360 bird's view on both leadership and communication. That was the only project in the entire path that stood by the term or by the slogan that we have heard many times: great leaders are effective communicators. That was the only project there, high performance leadership, which was followed by a yet excellent project called Speaking Professionally, where I was introduced to professional speakers and how do they speak. It might be a client visit, it might be a meeting in your office, or it might be the professional speaking forums that we know about. Can anyone speak some of the professional speaking forums that they know about? No idea? Have you heard of TED? Have you heard of Big Talk? Have you heard of Talk with Google? So these are professional speaking platforms where the audience is different, where your expectations are different, where your materials has to be different, and that's what the project, Prepare to Speak Professionally, all remains inside it. And the moment I completed that, I felt the change of dimension that we normally do in a 5 to 7 minute speech to a project that lasted for 40 minutes. So these are the difference, that starking difference that I had from level 1 to level 5. My dear friends, if you can go back 5 minutes later when I started with level 1, we started with learning, with the basics, followed by, what was the E? Engagement with the audience. What was the A? Accept that public speaking is an art. The R, you refine the rough edges, and number 5, you nurture the skills. So in a nutshell, if I'm saying, what about the pathways, level 1 to level 5, it's nothing about, it's learning to be a better version of yourself. So my dear friends, the moment we end today's meeting now, and you walk out of that door, if you haven't selected a path, please go ahead and select it. If you haven't given an icebreaker, make sure you give an icebreaker in the next meeting. If you have given an icebreaker, make sure you progress ahead one more step towards completion of a path. Because believe me when I say this, the more you learn, the more competent you become. And if you ask me how, don't worry, you will learn. Back to you, Rosna.